we go. Let's make Adam moderator. There we go.
Hi, Steve. How's it going there?
It's all going good. Thanks, Adam. Good evening to you.
Good evening to you. And Rowan, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay, but there's a echo going through.
Which is weird because I have Zoom on mute. So I don't know why that would be.
It seems to just be when we're talking.
Okay.
That as well, Steve?
Yeah, just when the two of you are talking. Yeah.
I think it may be Rowan. If you're on your speakers rather than your headphones, you might be hearing, because I'm not hearing the echo now that you're on mute. So I think it might be your audio output, just to investigate that. So let's kind of set the scene for today's topic then. So a lot of people have probably heard about the metaverse. The big thing that I think got it into a lot of people's consciousness was Facebook changing their name to Meta. And a lot of people were then asking, what is Meta? What is the metaverse? What is this whole Web 3.0, this kind of new evolution of using the internet? Today, what we're going to be talking about isn't so much that, because we're not, that much technically minded. We're three hypnotherapists that have this kind of appreciation that technology can be utilized for hypnotherapists. So what I thought might be a useful way to structure today's conversation, and obviously if you've got any questions or ideas or anything you wanted to input, raise your hand, we'll get you up on stage. But from my perspective, what I thought would be really useful is to talk about how hypnotherapy and hypnotherapists have gone on a bit of a journey at embracing technology. And then we could look at what it might look like in this kind of future world of Web 3.0. And we're on that transition point now. Myself and Ryan were just talking before we went live. We're on a live Zoom call. We're on Clubhouse now. So right now, there's 7 of us, soon to be more as more people join, in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world. And yet we're all having a conversation, not physically, but through technology. Right now we're in the metaverse in a variation of it. Shared Zoom meetings are at some level the metaverse. And I think sometimes people assume that you have to have these kind of Ready Player One avatars and you VR headsets and you actually exist in these kind of worlds. Not necessarily. It's about using technology to interact with people, not in reality, but virtually. So therefore, even Clubhouse is kind of Web 3.0. Was there any thoughts from you guys up on stage with me, just in terms of the kind of themes, the kind of topics we could touch on today?
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think there's going to be an issue of infrastructure with this in terms of equipment, because both the therapist and, of course, the client are going to need access to information. And then from that, I was thinking about different levels of implementation, from simply conveying extra information to people, and then going on to that, the more advanced levels of or potential of the metaverse, use of avatars and scenes and experiences and that sort of thing. So I saw it in those 3 stages, really.
I was sort of thinking about this more along the lines of where could we take this in this future? And I've been reading The Infinite Game the last few days. I don't know if you've read that. And this is really a point in time where we get a chance to really change some of the rules of that infinite game of business and life in general, and how we communicate with each other. So I think that looking at this from a sort of holistic perspective from therapists, something that might be a really good idea is actually building a therapy center in one of the metaverse platforms like the Earth 2.0 or something like that, that would just be freely available for anyone to book in and use that space to sort of advertise and work through their stuff. But as far as the sort of progression of the web goes, we were talking about this before, Adam, this idea that sort of Web 1 was the university to university internet before it fully became public, and all the news groups and things like that were there. And then we moved on to the sort of more static internet and dynamic web pages. And now the transition into Web 3 from Web 2 is this online decentralized community that we can enjoy. So I think there's loads of options with this as to where we can go.
Yeah, totally. And I think if we look at the kind of journey, and it's all about choices at the end of the day, and it'd be great to hear from the audience, what your take on technology is, because, I know a few therapists, and they're very reluctant to do things, over Zoom, and they'd prefer to do things face to face with clients and meet people in real life. But, I think the kind of journey that some hypnotherapists have gone on is that they started off perhaps with a website. And on that website, they had a bit of information about themselves, maybe a logo, maybe their credentials, and the kind of things that they've worked on. And then over time, they might have added certain things on there, like the ability to book a consultation call, or maybe share some testimonials and things like that. And at the point where, let's say, additional multimedia information or applications or integrations are put into that website, then you're really in the realm of Web 2.0. And then I think the pandemic sped up that kind of need, because I don't know about you, but my number of face-to-face clients over the last 2 years went from around about 10 per week to pretty much 0 per week. And then I was doing all of my, and I was figuring out which ones were going to be better. Skype, Zoom. In the end, Zoom worked really well for me. But what happened is that willingness to kind of embrace technology meant that I wasn't limited to people that could physically get to Harley Street in London. Suddenly the world became my potential client base. And what I decided to do at that point in time is launch a couple of podcasts, which enabled me to come across as knowledgeable on hypnosis to a fairly big audience over time. And again, I would say podcasting and YouTube, very much what we would call Web 2.0. You're creating rich media content, you're getting it out there in the world, and then people can interact and respond to that. For me, the key borderline between Web 2.0 and 3.0 is this ability to work with people in real time, interactively. Clubhouse for me is Web 3.0. VR is 3.0. Any of, interactive Zoom calls and webinars where you've got interaction going on, you've got people from all different places interacting. That's Web 3.0. And I think when we talk about the metaverse, I think one of the key things that makes it scary is this idea that the metaverse equals VR and that equals avatars. And I think that's going to put a lot of people off at embracing what Web 3.0, what it really is. And that's the ability to work with people anywhere. And they see a digital representation. I'm looking at Rowan on screen here. That's not really Rowan, a meter and a half away from me. That's a digital representation of Rowan. Now, it's not an avatar with like a comical, kind of face and exaggerated features, but it's not really him. He's, a few hundred miles, 400 or 500 miles away. So I'm seeing a representation of Rowan, and I'm seeing icons, for Steve and now Willie up on the stage as well. That's not really you. That's an icon that represents you. So this is, for me, what the metaverse is and what makes it really exciting, because there is a lot of people that really need the skill set of hypnotherapists, and Web 3.0 and the metaverse enable us to help people everywhere, which is a really exciting thing. Welcome up to the stage, Willie. Did you have a question or some kind of point that you wanted to contribute on?
Well, can y'all hear me clearly?
Absolutely. Totally can, yes.
Okay, cool. Well, I was just saying, I'm agreeing with you guys as far as technology, because technology is growing leaps and bounds, and I can barely keep up with it myself from day to day. Before the pre-pandemic, like you were saying, clients I would see face to face, but now this whole world of Zoom and like YouTube and all the other stuff, it's kind of hard to wrap. It was kind of hard to wrap my head around at first, but once I actually got to diving deep into it, it just opened up a whole new world, a whole new metaverse or universe, as you could say. And I have colleagues now that they're doing things with, like you said, VR with these VR headsets, these Oculus and PlayStation headsets, where they go in and set up hypnosis rooms on VR. I'm like, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, and it's just amazing what technology can do, and how much more far they could take you, especially in your profession.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, and I find it so exciting. I've always been like really into kind of gadgets and technology, but what's dawned on me while you were saying that, Willie, is that of the people on the stage, I've met Rowan twice in real life on 2 different occasions. Outside of that, all of our interactions has been through basically digital interaction. It's kind of like chats on Messenger or kind of Zoom calls and things like that. Steve, I've never met face to face. Sally, we've had a few different interactions. You're regularly on the Clubhouse room. I've never met you in real life, so there is this kind of ability, I think, that technology enables real connections to take place, even without the physicality that used to be, the kind of the old world and the old way of doing it. And that is really exciting. And if we can create friendships and colleagues and networks, we can definitely have that same impact. I don't know about you. It'd be interesting to hear what everyone says on stage. But one of the most popular questions I get asked before someone books with me is it as effective over Zoom as it is face to face? Because there is still a perception out there that somehow it's not the real thing if you're not having someone right in front of you. I'd be curious to hear what anyone else thinks on that, but that's a question I get asked a lot. Normally before they book like 5 Zoom sessions with me, but that is a question that comes up. Any thoughts from that, guys?
I think it's different online, but I don't think it's necessarily harder. I think sometimes it's actually easier. And one of the things that I've noticed quite clearly is when I'm doing one-to-one sessions and doing the Swan from Bob, I get better success doing it over Zoom. And I think it's because their subconscious knows they're being recorded. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's something about like performing when you get pulled up on stage, they're more likely to go into trance. True. Because they're on camera. This is real for them now. Whereas if it's just one-to-one, it feels more personal, so they can be more relaxed. And I think that allows that mind split to happen for the Swan to work a little bit better online. So it's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, I would go along with that, Rowan. So I've only recently started using the Swan, and yeah, I've had more success with it online, which I counterintuitive. I thought it would be the sort of thing that wouldn't work so well, but maybe you're right on that. Maybe where people are aware they're being observed to a degree. I mean, I generally don't record most of the sessions I do with clients, but maybe it's that awareness of having a camera on them as opposed to just having a person in front of them. Maybe it's that, but
yeah, it's just my intuition on it, So.
Yeah. Sally's popped up. So, Sally, do you want to jump in at this point and say something?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same thing with people. People are nervous about Zoom and sometimes a bit technically challenged. And I just think, well, just come for a consultation and I can help you with that confidence about Zoom. It's ironic that they won't try it because they're nervous about it. And yet I could help them when they're on it, if that makes sense. The point I was going to make, this is really showing my age now, but when I first started working, there was no such thing as, the internet or network computers or anything like that. I worked on green screens, nothing integrated, nothing at all. I worked in accounts. It was an manual adder machine, had to use that manually. But I've seen a lot of changes since then, and I've embraced that change because I like using new software, new computer systems. I like getting in and having a see how it works, but not everybody is like that. Some people are very, very nervous about technology, and certainly a lot of therapists that I've met are very, very nervous about it. But I personally love working over Zoom. You know, it gives you greater scope to meet more people and networking. I've met people on online networking on through Zoom that I would never, ever, ever have met face to face. And even if I'm based in South Wales, and if you know, in groups in South Wales, they wouldn't have travelled 20 miles down the road, 20 miles to come to a networking meeting. So I wouldn't have met them. And I've met people and worked with people that way. So for me, it's been really good, and I really enjoy working on Zoom. And people do say, does it work as well? I guess I've worked more on Zoom than in person, as not been in it as long as, say, Adam, or you, Steve, or you, Rowan. But for me, I don't know, I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So that's just my thoughts on the matter, really.
Yeah, no, I think you raise an interesting point there. I think if there is going to be a stumbling block into the extended run out of Web 3.0 for therapy, I think it may be around the familiarity with the technology. If I ever get a problem with a client, it's generally not an ideological problem about working online, working via Zoom, for example. It's normally a technical issue of getting them set up. And it's not necessarily an age-related thing either. I mean, I've got a guy I'm 55. I've got a client who's just 3 years older than me. He had a stroke a little while ago, and I've worked with him in the past on other issues, and he just couldn't get his Zoom setup working. And unfortunately, he only lives about 25 miles away. So I'm going out to see him tomorrow. We're going to do a session in his home and hopefully set him up on Zoom. But obviously, if he lived in another country, I've got no prospect of doing that. So I think the technology is moving so quickly. I just hope that we're all going to be able to, or our clients are going to be able to adapt to that equally quickly. But I'll be interested to hear what other people have to say on that.
Just one more point on that. I do have a video that a colleague therapist did about how to use Zoom, which I do ask people beforehand. Are they have they used it before? Are they technically minded? And if not, I send them this video with his permission. So that, I think, that sort of take some of the thing away. But you still get people that won't work on Zoom because especially with my wrist, because I still can't drive, so I can't go anywhere as such. You still get people, oh no, I don't want to use Zoom. So, that's the only option I'm offering at the moment. Sorry.
I think one of the concerns that some people have with technology is that the technology itself will replace the profession. And I'll be honest, if I was in the legal profession right now and AI can process millions of different legal cases and laws and arguments in seconds, I'd be nervous about, my hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of student debt that got me as a lawyer. A friend of mine, my best friend actually, he has a PhD in augmented reality. So, this is at some level the kind of part reality, part virtual reality. So augmented reality, most people will know that because how you see the world through your camera phone, for example, overlays technology with what's actually there. And he asked me a fascinating question because he's in this kind of world of kind of like cutting edge technology. And he said, how will AI affect your industry? And I was thinking about that. And it was a curious kind of thing because I thought, what could happen to have bots replace therapists? And I thought, well, there's certain things that bots could do, and there's certain things that they would be hopeless at. And one of the things that technology is really bad at is nuanced kind of interpretation. They can process huge amounts of data, But that intuitive element of being able to calibrate in real time and kind of interact, that's fairly rare. What I said to him, because I was thinking about it, because I said, well, I've got about 350 odd episodes of my podcast. AI could, in theory, process all of my 350 episodes, take out my voice, and then create brand new episodes that have never been created from a combination of my word, speech patterns, and things like that. And then perhaps go through all of the peer-reviewed journals and all the different hypnosis techniques, and then create protocols for different things. And I said, that would potentially mean that if someone had an app and they put their specific condition and it went through some kind of flow chart and they said, have you experienced this? And they could do the SUDS thing and all that kind of stuff. And then it could spit out a hypnosis session at the end. I think that would be fairly good. I think it would be a reasonably good episode in the sense that it's going to get 80, 90% of what they're looking for. What it could not do, though, is calibrate in real time. I think those hypnotherapists that are so attached to their scripts are screwed when this kind of technology comes along. And the kind of therapists that are, in my opinion, proper hypnotherapists that actually respond to the needs of the client in real time based on what's happening, they're going to be okay. But these people that kind of ask the questions of what script is going to work for this, technology can replace that already, probably, not even too far in the future. So I'm not kind of apocalyptic about technology with hypnotherapy. I think it's going to enhance our profession massively. But I think certain professions, I wouldn't want to be in certain professions if I'm seeing into my crystal ball of what the future looks like. And any thoughts on that from anyone? Oh, and by the way, I think we've got Colette up on stage as well, just before you talk, Rome. I don't know if you had a question or anything. Colette, are you? Okay, I'm not sure if you might have to take yourself off mute, Colette, if you wanted to contribute there. What were you figuring out how to do that, Rome? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts on that was really, off the back of what you were saying there. Like there's already AI, so there's things like Serrano that plugs into Zoom that does transcription analysis of the conversation, and the stuff that comes out of that is absolutely phenomenal. It gives you real insights, especially in regards to like sales and things like that. But it's analyzing things through effectively looking at NLP and language patterns and things like that. So we're starting to see all this stuff come through, and it is an extra tool. I don't think it's ever going to replace us, because the good hypnotists are the jazz musicians rather than the sort of player pianos with the roll running the paper script. Mm-hmm. That's the way I sort of look at it. But the one thing that sort of triggered when you were speaking about VR and stuff earlier was the idea of things like, using Google glasses and things like that to actually create AR, like augmented reality, post-hypnotic suggestion crews and things like that for them. And you could effectively install that using map systems. I was just doing a bit of footage for a Siemens commercial where they've got a new system that they're making that allows you to track all of the different switching systems that Siemens make. So all of the traffic lights, all of the sort of locks for e-bikes and things like that, the trains, everything. So they can now plan your entire route using these, using your smartphone and all these links. So we've got all this sort of this amazing stuff that people aren't even considering for our profession yet. Like the guys that make WordPress, a company called Automatic, they've developed a system where they can live stream their meetings on Zoom, and they can have all of their staff basically log on to their website and watch the meeting in real time. And then if there's anything that's maybe someone's got the wrong end of the stick about a project that's happening or something like that, and one of the guys is presenting to a CEO or something, the guys that run the project in the office at home can chat in on the meeting and say, no, you've got the wrong end of the stick here. So the possibilities of doing like dual inductions with other hypnotists over Zoom and things like that as well, and getting real-time help from colleagues on a session that you've got that's maybe causing a bit of difficulty or you're a bit stuck on or things like that, you can have a peer actually watching the system. So there's so many possibilities with this. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing and really exciting.
It totally is. Colette, I've seen you've been able to figure out how to unmute yourself there.
Yeah.
There we go. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited by technology. I mean, you think I'm actually in New Zealand, so other side of the world for most of you. Yet you were able to meet here. I mean, I've grown up with no technology, like probably many of you, but yeah, I find it really, really exciting. And my son got a Oculus for his 21st last year, and when I tried it, I thought the amazing opportunities for therapy that this would be. And in fact, a New Zealand group are using it for needle phobia. Unfortunately, use it in the old way of graded exposure, which would but they're still using that technology to help people, which is just amazing. The opportunities out there for it. I mean, I personally find Zoom. I've found Zoom a bit clunky at times. So I work with DoxyMe, which is like a virtual clinic, and it's just one. It's just like opening up a website. It's just one URL, and that's where you give people, and they can wait in a waiting room, and it's really quite cool. So that's why I've gone with that side. But yeah, I think this is such an exciting time. Such an exciting time.
I'm the same. Yeah, it's crazy exciting because there's so many different possibilities. And one of the sessions that we have done on Clubhouse before is this idea of how important it is to niche and specialize and that kind of stuff. And you know, one of the arguments I was making against niching for regional-based therapists that don't use technology is that if you're in a big city, like here I am in London, when I started, my first niche was weight loss. So I was a weight loss hypnotherapist, and I had, you know, on the Google targeting a total potential audience of 15 million people that could all get to my practice in London. But if I was in, let's say, rural Scotland or Yorkshire or something like that, it would be crazy to niche in such a specific area like weight loss, because I'd be a weight loss hypnotherapist in a small patch with not many people, and that would limit my client size. Once technology like the metaverse means that we're all able to work with almost anyone anywhere in the world, at that point, why would I work with a generalist when I can work with any hypnotherapist around the country? I want to work with a specialist that knows that specific area better than anyone else. And that's what makes it really exciting for me, because there is more than enough clients for everyone. But when we really find our niche, the metaverse enables us to have very specific bait in an ocean of clients, that the clients that really have that need for what we're going to do, they're going to be able to find us because they're really going to seek us out. So that's what makes it really exciting. And I think, and this is my prediction, the old school, let's say Luddards that are reluctant to embrace new technology are going to find fewer and fewer clients that are willing to work with them. And effectively, it's only the clients that really aren't embracing technology and understanding. So you're going to have hypnotherapists that don't embrace technology working with clients that don't embrace technology. And there's going to be fewer and fewer of them, you know, as time goes on. And I think that for me is why, one, I love technology, but secondly, you know, from a business perspective, it gives everyone a global audience, which I think is really exciting. Steve, I know I interrupted you slightly before there, so I'm going to hand it over to you now.
That's all right. Now, I was just wondering, actually, as you were speaking, if there is potentially a caveat here, in that as we're now opening up these borders, as you were saying, Adam, that introduces the question of legislation. I mean, for example, there are some parts of the United States where only medical doctors and dentists, for example, can practice hypnotherapy. And as this becomes more popular, as I'm sure it will, I'm wondering if legislation is going to come in, and if that might be a good thing or not such a good thing.
Which country's legislation would it be in the metaverse, Steve, do you think?
Well, this is the question. You know, I regularly work with people from Canada and United States, and two from Australia last week, and I've got no idea what the local regulations are there. Are we working in their country? Are we working in my country? But I think it's only a matter of time before the legislators start to get their hands on this, and which way is it going to go then?
With the VPN, nobody knows where you are. Here's the thing. So if you are a legislator and you're a regulator, what they're going to do it based on your birth certificate, you know, it's going to be tricky to enforce. I think what happens is the metaverse effectively is self-policing. That's how I see it. So all the kind of things that we've started to see in Web 2.0, like the TripAdvisors and the Amazon reviews and all that kind of stuff. I think it becomes much more about that reputation and third-party reviews and credibility scores, because the blockchain, which is in some people's mind interlinked with this idea of Web 3.0 and mass decentralization, effectively is in very basic terms a ledger that stores data in the public domain that can never be altered or removed. Therefore, what if every hypnotherapist effectively is an NFT, and every client interaction they ever had can be adjudicated, and every hypnotherapist has the equivalent of an Uber score? I think that'd be really helpful, because there's a lot of shit hypnotherapists out there, and they can hide behind the fact that there is no rating or ranking system, and they can hide behind all their certificates and kind of things like that. But actually, a lot of them are just no good. And I don't use Uber a lot, but I get the principle that you get to see how good your Uber driver is, not based on what the Uber driver says, but what the passengers say. And that's a better, more realistic evaluation of that Uber driver than he himself saying, I'm a great driver. There's a lot of hypnotherapists that say, I'm a great hypnotherapist. I'd love to see what every single client combined says about them based on that. And I don't think that's too hard to do when you're in the metaverse and you've got the ability to share something, not in an editable format like Web 2.0, but blockchain, that's just always there. And then maybe for the first time ever in the history of hypnotherapy, we can actually find out who are the good practitioners. And that I think is a really exciting thing. I think it's needed, but I don't think it's going to be policed from regulation. Regulatory bodies cannot police the metaverse. They can't. It's all decentralized. And if there is a centralized version of the metaverse, like Facebook owning it, how annoyed? I know at least 30, 40 people that get annoyed when they get a Facebook ban, because that is a centralized social media network. Okay. In my opinion, and I'm no expert on this, I think the appealing metaverses are not going to be centrally owned like Facebook. They're going to be decentralized, blockchain, owned by the people for the people. You can't police that. You can't have someone arbitrarily saying, right, you're banned, or you're not following this rule, or you don't have the right qualifications. I don't think you can do that, because if they try and do that in a centralized metaverse, it's you teleport in the metaverse. You don't have to physically move. So everyone would just instantly go to a fairer, more transparent system. That's how I imagine it to be, because I wouldn't want to stay. And the thing is, why do people stay on Facebook, even though it has these kind of censorship issues and clearly, the agenda really to make money rather than actually connect people? Because it's the biggest, and it has the first mover advantage of having that critical mass. I think in the metaverse, because it's all new, and because a lot of the metaverse projects are actually built on decentralized platforms using blockchain, I think they're going to be the winners in this decentralized metaverse world, because no one's going to want external control that means that some kind of dictator or some kind of megalomaniac could just kind of arbitrarily change the rules. If it's genuinely decentralized, the people decide how it is. And I think that's why regulation isn't really going to work in the metaverse. Rowan, I know you're quite technically savvy. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just off the back of what you were saying there, I know Sally's got her mic open there as well, so I'll pass it over to you in a second. But essentially what we're saying here is that there's going to be a social points-based system that's not owned by, say, the government as it is in some countries, but it's going to be owned by the people in the blockchain and Web 3.0 itself. So it's going to be self-policing in that way, in that people will just start to disappear from the rankings effectively. But we have to watch as well, and this is the problem with any ranking system, is that to be the best in something that's an infinite game is impossible. So like there's that side of things as well. And the idea of this, where are we based as hypnotists? I think this is going to push into the idea of a single world government. We're already looking at crypto going into single currency for the world. And, I was speaking to you, Adam, just before about this as well, this idea that currently around the world, the banks are effectively trying to choose which crypto we're going to be using. And we, the people, can do that as well. We can tell them what crypto we want to use. So we could choose something like Stellar Lumen that has 0 transfer fees, and NFTs, and the whole metaverse system works with that as well. And you can have banking through that as well. So if we as hypnotists just started accepting a specific type of crypto and working in a specific way based on a specific set of rules that we've built into our specific blockchain for hypnosis or therapy within Web 3.0, then there's nothing they can do. They have to standardize the laws for all countries. They have to effectively stop shipping stuff around the world because it's cheaper to process somewhere else. So we are going to see this happen. And you can actually see that this has been a game plan that's been going on for the last 20 or 30 years with World Bank buying up third world debt. So they've effectively been collecting all of the debt of the world so that they have control of the money. And we're sitting on an edge just now where they actually have amassed all of this money in the world, but they've turned off the connection to gold. So right now it's worth nothing. It's just worth the value that we put on it as the people. So if we switch to a different currency just now, we could effectively make all of the money that Rockefeller and JP Morgan have completely obsolete in an instant just by doing this sort of stuff. So this Web 3.0 is more than just a new platform for therapy. This is a new platform for a paradigm shift of our species. And I think we have to look at it in that way. But it's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. But I think that point of the metaverse isn't in a country, it's out there in technology. And therefore, I think we don't know what it is. It might be multiple cryptocurrencies, but it's highly likely to be a cryptocurrency that is the payment. So, I know a lot of people think they hear Bitcoin, they hear ETH and that kind of stuff, and they get very, it's a bit scammy, it's a little bit volatile and all that kind of stuff. The reality is that will be the currency of the future. And particularly if you're working with clients in the metaverse, it would be odd that you're in a digital environment and then you're taking fiat currency, because there's no exchange of coins. It's still a digital version of your fiat currency anyway. When that PayPal transfer goes from your client to you, it feels like it's real money, but it's effectively, it's numbers on a page. It's still a form of cryptocurrency. It's just not encrypted, and therefore PayPal can just suspend that payment and not get it back to you. Sally, I know you took your mic off before. Was there something you wanted to ask or say there?
Well, it's sort of been talked about really, but I guess the thing about it gives people a lot more freedom, but also people are nervous about the security, and and certainly what hackers are like and scam artists are like. They'll adapt to anything that comes out, and so some people are nervous about that, and some people are vulnerable to that. I guess with the blockchain, I've sort of dabbled with crypto, lost a bit of money, so I'm not doing it at the moment. That's more about my choices than anybody else, or anything else. I'm not saying it's bad or good, or it's more about maybe the choices that I've made in that. But a lot of people are nervous about the new technology. So security, like I said, security is one thing, I guess, that people sometimes worry about. That's all I wanted to say, really.
Yeah, the security is not actually an issue. This is actually a really interesting subject as far as especially the Bitcoin blockchain is concerned, because there's a load of wallets that are absolutely filled with Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin has been made, as it's been going up and up in value, you have all of the best hackers in the world constantly trying to break these wallets and break the blockchain code for Bitcoin. And it's been, 20 odd years now, almost, like 15 years or something since they wrote this. So it's effectively one of the most secure systems that we've ever come across. ETH did this as well, but they got hacked and split, and now it's had the holes plugged. So it's now a tried and tested 10-year-old system or something, Ethan. Is it 10 or 12 years old or something, Ethan? So those two blockchains, and Stellar Lumen's built off the back of that sort of same technology as the ETH blockchain. So it's pretty stable as well. It's been around for a while as well. So these three in particular are all actually super safe.
I get all that, Rowan, but people don't understand it.
I know, but if you can show them that and like just tell them that, you know, like all the world's best hackers have been trying to hack into these wallets because they've got like trillions of pounds worth of Bitcoin in some of them, or millions at least, you know, millions and billions of pounds worth of Bitcoin. So it's really fascinating to see how secure that system actually is. You know, I don't know what your take is.
Sorry,
on you go.
With that as well, like if you with your wallet, if you get one digit wrong, you've lost it, as far as I understood it. I mean, I haven't kept up with it necessarily, so there's always a risk as well, and you know, people's other worry is technology goes wrong. You know, we've had problems with, you know, sound linking to from Zoom and whatever, you know, and we get it sorted, but you know, other people know, well, technology goes wrong if, you know, it's not so bad if you're doing it in person, you know, it's less likely to go wrong. That's not my opinion. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I'm quite technically savvy, and I've been not hacked, but scammed on a couple of occasions, because it's not the technology that's got the flaws, it's the humans that have, and unfortunately, things like greed and fear and ignorance can all be exploited. And you're right, there are vulnerabilities in any new system. And I kind of liken what's happening right now in this kind of metaverse world. It reminds me of kind of the internet in kind of 1999, 2000, where, you know, everyone kind of was kind of aware of it, and then they would go, and it would take ages for pages to load, and, you know, videos would have to buffer and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of how the metaverse is right now. And all that's going to happen, but it is going to happen at a faster rate, is going to be made really user friendly. You know, changing cryptocurrencies from one wallet to another wallet, it feels like, I was fucking nervous the first couple of times that I do it, because it goes out there in the blockchain, and sometimes it's like minutes, but sometimes it's like half an hour, and you're like, I may never see that again. And there's this real kind of panic attached. It's just not very user friendly right now. Now I've done it a few times. I get pissed off at the banks when it's that slow way of doing things, because I kind of think, but hold on, you can just transport money, you know, instantly like this, and have that security, but you have to, you know, it's still not user friendly. You've got to copy and paste very long chains of letters. Like, it's fine if you use a clipboard, but if you have to type it in manually, you're right, you get one digit wrong, it's going to go into someone else's wallet. You'll never see that again ever. You've lost it. So there are kind of valid fears, I think, about blockchain, the metaverse, crypto, all this kind of stuff. And the other thing I think is that a lot of people, and as hypnotherapists and NLPers, you know, we're familiar with, you know, the NLP principle of chunking. A lot of people they throw it all into exactly the same basket. So they hear Bitcoin, they hear crypto, they hear metaverse, they hear NFTs, and they're like, oh, it's all a scam, you know, that kind of generalization, or it's all too scary, too intimidating. And I think that's like someone saying the internet's bad because there's bad things that happen there's horrible things that happen on the internet. The internet's not good or bad. It's a vehicle. And I think the metaverse will be the same thing. There'll be scammers, and there'll be, you know, criminals and all kinds of stuff in the metaverse, but equally there'll be really competent hypnotherapists helping people they wouldn't have been able to work with if they had to physically meet them in a clinic, you know. And I think that's the exciting thing as well. Colette, I can see you're unmuted there. Did you want to contribute there?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bit off track maybe, but I mean, it's sort of still connected in that if we're putting all our eggs in the basket of technology, which requires electricity, what happens, when climate change comes along, which it is doing now, and we get these, power outages that may last more than, days, weeks, there is also that risk out there of, we still need cash. Some people still want cash. It's like, how do we structure our business so that we're still able to function when maybe the virtual reality isn't available? Just putting it out there.
It's a really interesting point. I can see Rowan's unmuted.
Yeah.
So, we've also got Rich up on stage. So straight after you've answered that, Rowan, maybe we hop over to Rich there. Thanks for waiting there, Rich.
Yeah, just off the back of that, I mean, the idea of power outages, one of the things that I've come across recently is we've worked out how to get power from raindrops. So they've been able to get 150 volts from a single raindrop. And this is the new sort of branch of renewable energies that they're looking at. So there's a potential that your roof could generate all the electricity you ever need for your house going forward. That's the sort of technology that we're looking at. And we've got the possibility of fusion reactors and things like that. But to be able to produce electricity from the rain that's falling on your roof, especially like I'm in Scotland, so we're going to be running the rest of the world the amount of rain we get up here. So I think there's always going to be new solutions and new ways of looking at these problems. And Tesla's got their sort of home battery kits that you can get now, where you've got a battery in your house that allows you to run all your solar panels and run the whole thing off grid and things like that. So we're going to see more and more of this stuff coming in. We're already seeing electric cars taking over the roads and stuff like that. So it's an interesting question, as to whether we'd have these problems going forward, or if they're going to dissolve with the new technology that's coming with Web 3.0 and all of the changes that are happening with it as well.
And I think electricity is and energy is clearly going to be one of the threats to the metaverse. If you've got this kind of virtual world and you need electricity to experience it, my prediction is, in response to ever increasing energy prices, at some point in the fairly near future, I think within the next 5-10 years, there will be very, very cheap renewable energy available, because I think there's going to need to be, but equally, there's no guarantee of that. I also think the other threats, are, if you look at what happened in China effectively banned Bitcoin, and you get certain parts of the world that effectively try and control what you can and what you can't do. Look at North Korea, look at, different parts of the world. So I think there will be attempts to control, the metaverse and control the currencies and all these kind of things, because there's a lot of vested interests that have a lot to lose the moment things become truly decentralized and it's just kind of out there. And that's why I think the blockchain technology is so important, because if you have a truly decentralized network, the moment in Bitcoin, for example, for those that don't know, China effectively banned Bitcoin about, was it 6-7 months ago? And within 2 or 3 months, all of the Bitcoin miners that were kind of responsible for making sure those transactions happen, they just moved to different parts of the world. So that showed how robust it was, even when you've got like pretty much the biggest or second biggest amount of kind of people in that network. It adapted really, really quickly. In a truly decentralized future, whether that's metaverse or the currencies or whatever it might be, it becomes very robust. And I think it truly provides a platform for a lack of interference and a lack of threats, because the system itself evolves and adapts. Doesn't necessarily deal with that issue of energy, which, but I do think, if you look at, cars, for example, cars are much more energy efficient now. The TV that I'm kind of looking into now, I'm in my mid 40s. TVs used to be massive, bulky things. Now they're fairly energy efficient. I think all these kind of gadgets and things that we're using are going to get more and more energy efficient, which is going to have less of that kind of energy drain. But I think you're right, Colette. It's a real possibility that in certain parts of the world that are, let's say, have a less reliable infrastructure, it could mean that they're high and dry, and then absolutely you need to have a little nest egg so that you're not putting all of your eggs in the basket of the metaverse, because if you can't work with clients for a few weeks, what do? You need a backup plan.
Yeah. Also, Colette, regarding the needing cash, sometimes you've got NFTs. So if you're working with something like Stella or one of the blockchains that's truly encrypted and secure, rather than the ones that they're trying to install for the banking system, then you can effectively still run cash, although it's a crypto cash rather than, you know, the paper money that we've got. But the paper money you've got just now is traced. The bank machines scan all the numbers, and then when it goes into someone else's account, those numbers are linked to your account because you took them out of cash line in the high street in London or something like that, you know. So all of that cash just now that we've got is being tracked just as much as our bank accounts are as well. But this new crypto universe, this blockchain universe, allows us to effectively bypass that and take cash, because we can buy assets with our companies.
So one of the key topics of this is what does the metaverse mean for therapists? And I think we've touched on a few things. One is that it potentially opens up a bigger client base. I think the other thing that we've touched on is it potentially means that there is more freedoms. So if you are regulated geographically in certain parts of the world, maybe the States, for example, the metaverse means that effectively you could practice as a therapist without regulation, because the metaverse doesn't actually have any borders. So that, I think, it opens up for therapists. I also think, and this is my opinion, there will be revenue streams for therapists that we can't even comprehend yet. There will be ways that we can take our particular skill sets and monetize. And if you look backwards, you know, early days of hypnotherapy, I remember watching VHS videos and kind of CDs of people like Paul McKenna and things like that. One of the first, you know, people, and you know, then you've got YouTube with the kind of the millions of views of certain hypnotherapy. Some people monetize that, but technology was able to take what someone does as a hypnotherapist and then find a new way of monetizing that in a particular way. And now you've got this new technology coming along, which is Web 3.0. There will be ways of taking our particular skill set and monetizing it that will reward those that embrace this new technology and are quite creative and kind of explore certain things. The fact that we're all hypnotherapists and here we are, you know, on Clubhouse, you know, talking about the metaverse means that it's probably going to be one of the people that we've got up here that will be one of those pioneers in these new areas, because it's quite an exciting time. And nobody really knows the rules yet, because there are no rules in the metaverse. There's no kind of rules and laws and that kind of stuff. So if anyone's got any ideas about what those could be, that would be interesting. But Rich, I'm conscious that we've not really heard from you much, and you're up on the stage. So was there any questions or points that you wanted to make?
Two really. Yeah, thanks for letting me up. Is electricity bills or your utility bills in this country going to go up by about $3,000 this year in some cases? And the Secretary of State for Urban Housing and Development, Catherine Austin Fitz, she runs a thing called the Solari Report. And what she reckons with crypto is that it's a single way mirror. We can't see what's on the other side of it, and henceforth it could then be controlled by somebody else. And that was my kind of points for that.
You're totally right about the energy bills, that they're getting more and more expensive. You know, a lot of it is based on the wholesale prices, and I don't think what's happening in Russia and Ukraine at the moment is going to do any favors for those energy prices, given how much natural resources and the pipelines that are in that kind of area, particularly for some of us in Europe. I think for a while energy prices are going to get higher and higher, and obviously, you know, as Colette quite rightly said, you know, the metaverse is, you know, an electricity fueled, you know, interaction, you know, whether that's Zoom meetings, whether that's VR headsets, whether that's, you know, kind of tablets and PCs and laptops and that kind of stuff. So very, very valid point that it could be more expensive. But that's the cost side of the equation. You've also got the revenue side of the equation. And, I think, in like anything, what could be a cost? If you're just kind of using these things, metaverse, purely for entertainment, which I think the majority of people will, then it's a cost. But in the same way that some people use social media to waste time, other people use social media to generate new clients and create new products and things like that. So I think it will be a double-edged sword. There will be, I think, revenue and business opportunities within the metaverse, as well as potential costs. I think it is that element. There are so many unknown variables about crypto, particularly the currencies. The thing that makes it appealing for me is this element of decentralization. The fact that it can't be controlled because it's decentralized and it's encrypted. There is lots of unknown variables, and I think there's lots of malicious actors in this space that exploit ignorance, that exploit confusion and all those kind of things. But I think the raw technology behind it, I'm new into this space, but I have more confidence in the funds I have in my crypto portfolio than I do in my pound sterling that I have in my bank account. Because the pound sterling I have in my bank account, I also know that actually, if there's a run on the banks, they don't have enough money to pay all that money out. So effectively, banks are lending about 9 times whatever their reserves they have on average. So what's crazy for me is the same arguments that people say, well, can you really count on crypto having value and that kind of stuff? Not just kind of cryptocurrencies, but anything related to the blockchain, like NFTs and things like that. If you apply the same argument to the fiat currencies, then here's why the major governments had to bail out the big banks in 2008, 2009, because they knew that if they didn't, if people lost confidence in the financial system, there is a house of cards. There is more money, there is more debt linked to the money than the money is themselves. The whole thing falls down, and they couldn't afford for that to happen. So that's why they had to kind of bail it out by printing more money and all this kind of stuff. So you're right, Rich. There is so many unknown variables there about what crypto is. It's too new, really. I mean, this didn't exist 20 years ago, and now it's kind of like a growing thing. But crypto for me is just one part of the metaverse, and it's two things that for me are really important within the metaverse. One is the blockchain technology that makes the metaverse decentralized and therefore not owned by someone like Facebook and now called literally Meta. That's an important part of it. And secondly, the metaverse is going to be borderless, and therefore, why would we have currencies linked to US dollar or pound sterling or yen or whatever it might be? If you're in this kind of digital universe, it makes sense that the currency itself is cheap and fast and secure. And that's effectively what crypto is designed to do. So it's a strange old world, but I think and I appreciate it's coming up to 10 o'clock. So summarizing the whole thing, what does the metaverse mean for therapists? In one word for me, opportunities. That's really what it means. Rowan, I don't know if you've got a word or a phrase that the metaverse do you think means for therapists?
I think it's the same as any problem that we face in life. We can look at this and go, oh God, we've got a problem here. I don't know what to do. Or we can look at it and go, oh, here's an opportunity to grow. I'm frustrated at not understanding what this is about. And that frustration is something that we look for. So I think that this is, to be summed up as an opportunity to grow and re-engage our creative minds and see just how far we can push this field of therapy going forward. Because, we're all like hypnotists and we do our little bit here and there, but the field of hypnosis has had nothing but resistance from the mainstream world since its inception. Like mainstream psychology and medicine have effectively tried to push it out the back door and get everyone to forget about it as much as they can. And this technology gives us an opportunity to really change that. And especially if we can do things like starting bringing in the previous information from stuff that's been pushed to one side. Like we were talking earlier about FND and hysteria and conversion disorder. So it's had 3 different names really, from hysteria originally to conversion disorder and then on to FND. And each time it started to get traction as being helped by hypnosis, the name was changed. Whether that was by design or not, I'm not sure, but all of this research seems to have been sort of forgotten and lost, except for by a few people as the name changes happen. So we've got an opportunity to really help the infinite game of therapy here, to pull the term from the book that I'm reading just now. So yeah, that's my one opportunity.
And that book, by the way, Simon Sinek, I believe, that did Infinite Games. So check that out. I saw him do a talk on the Infinite Game, and I've read a little bit of it, but it seems fascinating. So let's quickly run through just to summarize. Colette, what would your one word or phrase be that summarizes what the metaverse means for therapists?
I agree with you, opportunity. I think that's the one word that comes to my mind. Expansion of skills, that's 2 words, I suppose, but the ability to be able to look at this as a chance to enhance what we're already doing.
That's amazing. And Sally, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, possibilities. What is possible? It goes to your limiting beliefs, I said, and what are we capable of, and what are the possibilities for us? Just one thought about the currency. There were pictures about Ukraine, and obviously today, and people trying to take money out of the cash points. And that's the first thing people do when they try to take money to get away from things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about a run on the banks.
Yeah. I had the same thought when I saw that. Rich, what would be your one word or phrase thinking about the metaverse for therapists?
It's already been said, Adam. Opportunity, possibilities.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Rich. And then coming back to you, Steve, I know you opened today's talk. Do you want to give us a quick summary before we close the room?
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to go with caution. And that's based on history. Throughout mankind's history, there have always been people who seek to control. And whilst we have tremendous potential through Bitcoin, through cryptocurrency, through blockchain and all of this, I think ultimately there is an awful lot of people out there who have a lot to lose. And history has told us time and time again that they always seem to find a way to hold on to that control. So I'm going to go with caution.
On that optimist, I'm teasing Steve. I agree with you. And caution, by the way, is a very useful resource when making any kind of choices and exploring something new. If you this is a new world effectively, and those people that went from Europe to the Americas without any caution didn't last very long. You have to, I think, be an optimist, but also be vigilant and make sure you don't take unnecessary risks. And I think that balance of the two makes sense, but we don't want to be left behind equally. And I think the metaverse will reward those people that kind of diligently but cautiously explore it. And it is a game that you need to kind of play. Thanks everyone for joining or being in the audience. And even if you didn't kind of come up on stage and contribute, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. If you've got any ideas for any future topics for future rooms, we're here every Thursday, 9 p.m. UK time. Please, you can either use that little airplane, icon to message us, or you can click our bios, send us a message on Instagram, and we'll certainly take that on board. But thank you again for joining us today, and take care and see you soon.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Thanks, Ali. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.